Hello and welcome to Bullish, where we explore that fine line between what is bullish and what is bullshit. I'm your host, Alex Wilhelm. On the program this week, we have Keith Krach, the CEO of Docusign, and we're going to ask him, why is he a unicorn? We're talking about unicorns and not the mythical creatures. In technology, a unicorn is a company founded in the last decade, 10 years, that is now worth more than $1 billion. It can be private, it can be public. $1 billion is that threshold. Now, last year, there were 39 unicorns in tech, a big number. This year, it's now 84, more than 100% growth in just 1 year. So the unicorn club, which used to be exclusive in a way, is now quite crowded. For some people, the growth of these billion-dollar tech companies means creative new business models and innovation. To others, the explosion of billion-dollar valuations screams one word: bubble. Now, it's a frothy time in tech, but is that really a fair rule? Let's find out. Next up, we have Keith Krach, the CEO of Docusign, to tell us if we're in a bubble or not.
Keith Krach is the CEO of Docusign. Docusign was founded in 2003 and has raised more than $500 million to date. Just this year, Docusign has raised $278 million, making it one of the most heavily funded late-stage companies. Docusign is worth around $3 billion, meaning that it's more than a unicorn, it's a triple-corn. How bullish is Krach on the current technology market? Let's find out.
Please welcome to the show, Keith Krach.
Alex, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, thank you for coming. Now, I'm very scared. I'm very scared because of the stampeding horde of unicorns that is growing and multiplying here in Silicon Valley. So I want to know, do you think right now there are too many unicorns in the market?
Well, you know, I'm not a unicorn specialist by any stretch of the imagination.
But you are, sir. You are. Your company's worth, Docusign raised the $3 billion valuation. So you're the head of one of the bigger unicorns.
Well, all I know is I'm just a business person. I think you just focus on the customer and focus on the value proposition, and all that stuff takes care of itself.
I wanted to talk about that because we published a report this week on TechCrunch, kind of the Unicorn Report Part 2.
Yeah.
And one of the notes that Aileen Lee of Cowboy said was that among a lot of these unicorns, they're seeing relatively low capital efficiency. Essentially, people are buying a lot of growth, and I'm not saying it's your company, but in general. So I'm curious, you know, when you look at how much capital is being raised, do you think people are just willing to spend too much right now, or do you think the spend rate among unicorns, even your company say, is roughly in line and reasonable?
Yeah, I think it's always something that you're trying to optimize: growth, path to profitability, and also I call it built to last investments. So you're building for the future.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So you guys, I'm sure, have a lot of internal metrics that you track in terms of how your capital is being used. Have you become more capital efficient, or are you roughly kind of where you were a year ago?
I think we are constantly improving our productivity. At the same time, making big investments in terms of carrier class availability, bank class security, a global investment in terms of expansion.
Now, you've raised, I think, just over $500 million total over the life of your company, but a big chunk of that came this year. You've raised several hundred million, so you're part of this group now that's raising 9-figure rounds.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to see similar rates of investment across the tech industry in the second half of this year that we've seen kind of in the first?
You know, that's hard to say. I would imagine so, as long as the market opportunity is there. And for us, our equity financing strategy is integrated with our corporate strategy. So in other words, being this global standard in terms of digital transaction management, key strategy for us is to thrive in a heterogeneous environment. So many of our partners have invested in us, like Salesforce, SAP, now this last round, Intel, Microsoft, Dell, Visa, Comcast, Samsung. The list goes on, and with all these great investors, really first came that they were a customer.
Right.
And a technology integration, and typically a go-to-market strategy as well.
So I think people are very worried right now that there could be a deceleration in the markets and perhaps in the capital markets for startups like Docusign. What do you think could be a trigger that could lead to a decline in investment across these unicorn class companies?
You know, the only thing I can think of is if there is a big macro change. But I think even that, markets go up and down.
You're not planning on seeing things kind of fall apart in the next 12, 18 months?
No, we're not seeing it, because if you look at what we're replacing something that's been done the same way for 3,000 years, and that's paper.
Right. Okay, now before we let you go, I want to point out that you are not a team. You were not a teenager. And there's been this big meme in technology over the last, I want to say, a couple years, that these kids these days are launching things like Snapchat and they're driving the pace of innovation. But in that same report, it was said that the average founding age of a unicorn founder is 34 years old. So much, much older than people I think would think watching Silicon Valley and so forth.
I'm 34 and a half.
Okay, good. I was going to ask you, Sean, just kidding. But I just wanted to get your quick take. 34 as the average founding age for a unicorn.
Yeah.
Does that seem right, or does that seem a little high?
I think that seems right. Here's why. And you know, I came to Silicon Valley when I was 30 years old, and the greatest thing is this is the West Point of capitalism. There's a premium on youth. It's a total meritocracy. It's like the United Nations. It attracts some of the most talented people in the world, and why not?
Yeah. All right. Thank you for coming in.
Hey, thank you, Alex. Appreciate it.
Bullish airs every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, and you can find it here on TechCrunch.com.